I forgot to set my alarm and ended up sleeping until almost 8 in the morning. By then, Heidi had already left, which worked out for me. I needed the house to myself to continue my search. Picking up my phone, I called my boss, Albert Falmouth, the CEO of Fenno. Albert, this is Merle. Can I take the day off? I've got some problems at home and need to focus. Albert chuckled. You're not cheating on Heidi, are you? No, nothing like that, I replied quickly. How long can I be gone without causing problems? Take a month off, and then we'll talk, Albert said casually. Gemma and her assistant Arch are doing such a good job with your department that you could retire today if you wanted. That's good to hear. I should probably call Gemma and explain what's going on, I said. Don't bother, Albert replied. I'll handle everything. Relax and enjoy your vacation. Then he added, almost slyly, maybe I can persuade your wife to spend more time at home. What do you mean by that, Albert? I asked, my tone sharpening. Oh, you've mentioned all those nights you're alone. Anyway, Merle, I've got another call. Don't worry about anything. Goodbye. I hung up, feeling uneasy. How did Albert know about Heidi and my evenings apart? I didn't recall ever telling him. Shaking off the thought, I made myself some muesli and toast while deciding where to search next. The attic, the spare bedroom, or the garage. I chose the attic. The hatch and ladder were at the end of the hallway, so I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and pulled the ladder down. Climbing up, I found that I could stand under the ridge of the roof. The attic was almost empty, except for a laptop and a router positioned directly above our bedroom ceiling. A laptop? Over our bedroom? The screen was black, but when I touched the touchpad, it lit up, showing a live feed of our bedroom. Shocked, I navigated through the directories and found a 2-terabyte hard drive and a folder labeled Daily, with 484 MP4 files. My stomach churned as I opened one file dated 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday. The video showed Heidi entering and leaving the bedroom several times in regular clothes. I was working that day, so the motion-triggered camera had recorded her movements. But then, 2 hours passed on the timestamp before the recording resumed. When it did, Heidi was wearing provocative lingerie I'd never seen before. She was soon joined by another man, my old friend Spencer. I froze, unable to move or breathe. Fury and despair washed over me in equal measure. When I could finally think clearly, I closed the video, leaving the live feed of our bedroom on the screen. I climbed back down, closed the attic hatch, and began to sob silent, hysterical sobs with no tears. After about 5 minutes, I calmed myself with deep breaths. This wasn't over. I was determined to uncover the whole truth. Next, I searched the spare bedroom. I went through the dressers, the bed, and the adjacent bathroom. There were some clothes hanging in the closet, and as I pushed them aside, I noticed a board, about 60 by 45 centimeters, screwed to the wall in 4 corners. I remembered seeing a screwdriver on the shelf above me, so I grabbed it and removed the screws. Behind the board was a safe slightly smaller than the hole. It had a dial and a lever. I tried pulling the lever, but it wouldn't budge. Then I recalled Albert showing me a trick once. If you turn the dial 2 numbers to the right after closing a safe, it would seem locked, but turning it 2 numbers to the left would open it. I took a deep breath and turned the dial left, 1 number, then another. A soft click confirmed it had worked. I pulled the lever, and the safe opened to reveal stacks of money, bundles of $100 bills. I counted 19 packs totaling $110,000. Stunned, I put everything back as I'd found it, replaced the board and screws, and returned the screwdriver to its spot. It all looked as though I'd never been there. But now I needed help. Someone who knew about computers and phones. Only one name came to mind, Marie Wan. Marie was my former assistant. I'd helped her get a job, a green card, and even citizenship. I pulled out my little black book, found her number, and called her work phone. "It Department Marie Wan speaking. How can I help you? Do you want to run away with a 36-year-old man and never work again?" I joked, trying to sound casual. "Merle, you never call. What's this about running away? If it's with you, I'll leave today," she teased. "Don't quit just yet. I need to talk to a friend. And honestly, I don't have many left. I'll call Mom and tell her to make dinner. Come over tonight, and you can tell me everything." "Marie, I miss working with you so much. Then why did you let me transfer 8 years ago?" "That's a long story, not one for the phone. I'll text you my new address. Mom and I moved into a big house 3 years ago. See you at 6. She hung up after a quick goodbye, and I wandered into the bedroom. That's when I noticed a piece of paper on the floor next to Heidi's dresser. Heidi's note read, "Dear Merle, I left early to help Meredith with the property auction in Charlotte. We'll go there today and stay home tomorrow. I'll be later than usual, but I'll devote the whole day tomorrow to you. Love you, Heidi." Sure, she's all mine. Except I seem to share her with half the city. I grabbed a yellow pad from my briefcase and made 2 columns. One titled "Stay, I'll forgive her," and the other, "Go to hell." Under each, I began listing reasons for staying or leaving. The result? 2 points in favor of staying and 13 in favor of leaving. Once I made up my mind, I created another list, this one detailing everything I'd need to do before leaving. Took me nearly an hour. The final list included what I wanted to take with me. Aside from my clothes and personal belongings, everything else belonged to Heidi. Fine. Possession is 9/10 of the law, as they say. Afterward, I made myself a light lunch, a sandwich and some chips, before heading to the living room to watch TV. Around 2:30, I saw Heidi's BMW pulling up to the house. Watching from the window, I noticed her slowing down, likely spotting my car parked in front of the garage. Then suddenly she sped off. There was someone in the passenger seat. I squinted, and my stomach dropped. It looked like my so-called friend, Spencer. Her note claimed she'd be in Charlotte with Meredith. Yet another lie. I set the alarm on my watch and closed my eyes. At 4:30, the alarm woke me. I showered, shaved, and dressed in casual clothes before entering Maria's address into my GPS. The drive was uneventful, and I arrived at her house at 5:50. Maria's mother greeted me at the door with a smile, shaking my hand and bowing slightly as I stepped into the cozy living room. Sit down," she said warmly, before speaking rapidly in Vietnamese. I caught one phrase she repeated several times. "You make a good husband." Unsure what to say, I switched to French, asking her what I should call her. She replied, "Mom," with a kind smile. Before I could respond, the door opened, and Maria walked in. She greeted her mother in Vietnamese, then turned to me. Stepping forward, she hugged and kissed me. I gently moved her back, taking her in from head to toe. Maria was stunning, tall at 5 feet 11 inches, with full natural curves. She wore a sparkly dress that ended about 8 inches above her knees, paired with 3-inch heels. Her jade green eyes, framed by soft Caucasian features, were mesmerizing. "You make a good husband," Maria's mother repeated with a knowing grin. "Mom, stop. What are you saying?" Maria blushed, lowering her eyes. I smiled. "She says I'd make a good husband," I teased. "Mom, that's enough," Maria exclaimed, flustered. "Clever woman," her mother muttered, ushering us toward the dining table. "Go eat." I excused myself to wash my hands in their small bathroom, then sat down to dinner. The meal consisted of seafood, rice, and green tea. Throughout dinner, Maria's mother spoke animatedly, as though someone were listening in, while Maria simply smiled at me. Afterward, her mother shooed us upstairs. This was the first time Maria's mother had ever sent me to her daughter's room. As we entered, Maria closed the door behind us. "Wait, Maria," I said, holding up a hand. "Let me talk first. If you still want me after, I'll stay the night." She nodded, and I told her everything. My marriage, my wife's secrets, my plans, my needs. Everything I'd been holding inside. An hour passed as I spoke. When I finished, I extended my hand to her. Maria melted into my arms, laughing, crying, and kissing me. "Why did you transfer out of being my assistant to IT?" I asked gently. "I couldn't work with you anymore," she admitted. "You were happily married, and I wanted to jump on you, but it would have ruined everything. I thought I might feel guilt for being with another woman, but there was none." That evening, Maria and I made love. I learned it was her first time, and I held her close, knowing this was the start of something new. The next morning, I got up, dressed, and headed to Maria's kitchen. Her mother greeted me, the smell of brewing coffee filling the air. She was making a massive omelet, and I sat at the table, checking my phone for missed calls or messages. Nothing. "Good morning, Merle," Maria said, appearing in a white robe that concealed everything yet revealed nothing. If I didn't have urgent business, I'd have gone back to bed with her. "Maria, do you think you can take next week off?" I asked. "I already did. Tommy, who works nights, needs the money because his wife is due next month. I owed him 3 days for when the baby's born," she explained. "Good. Then follow me to my house. I need to leave my car there. After that, we'll go to the Apple store for a new iPhone and then to a used car dealer. Are you ready?" The kiss I received confirmed her readiness. When we arrived at my house, Heidi's car wasn't there. I signaled Maria to come inside with me. She wore another short, tight dress that made me want to stop everything, but I couldn't. "Bad, Merle?" I muttered to myself, shaking my head. At the end of the hallway, I pulled out a ladder. I climbed up into the attic to make sure Heidi hadn't installed any more cameras in the spare room. While I was there, I opened the safe and found she'd added another wad of $100 bills. It seemed like she was stashing more money regularly. After finishing my inspection, Maria and I went to the Apple store and then a used car lot to buy a vehicle. I found a Suburban with only 28,000 miles on it, fully equipped, including a towing device. As I examined the vehicle, a stunning blonde in a red dress walked out of the office. "Hi, how can I help you?" she asked with a dazzling smile. "How much do you want for this Suburban?" I tried to sound casual. $49, $7.95, plus tax, plates, title, and handling fees, she replied smoothly. "Do you have trailers?" I asked. "Of course, honey. Follow me." She led us to a 7x4 trailer. "Is this what you're looking for?" "It's perfect," I said. "Let's go inside and talk." After some negotiation, I purchased the Suburban and trailer for $58,500 in cash. I agreed to bring a receipt by Friday morning. The extra money in the transaction was to make the cashier's check personal, so that we wouldn't need to report Form 8300 to the IRS. Maria drove me home, and we promised to be together forever. As I walked inside, I noticed Heidi's car was still missing. After cooking and eating dinner alone, I went to bed early. Around midnight, I felt Heidi slip into bed beside me. I didn't say anything. At 4 a.m., the alarm on my watch woke me. I quietly took her phone, went to my home office, and removed the battery, following the instructions Maria had taught me. After shorting its terminals, I put the phone back on the charger, returned to bed, and slept until my second alarm rang at 6:30. Heidi was still sleeping when I got up, got ready for work, and made myself a bowl of oatmeal and a cup of coffee. As I was eating, I heard her calling out, "Merle, Merle, are you still here?" Her voice was frantic. "Yes, darling, I'm in the kitchen," I replied. She walked in, holding her phone and shaking it. "Thank God you're here. My phone isn't working." I took the phone from her, pretending to inspect it. "It's dead," I said after repeating her actions. "How about I take it to the Apple store and get you the latest model? They can transfer all your data to the new phone, and everything will be the same." "But I need my phone now. Can't we just put my memory card in your phone?" she asked desperately. "No, honey, I have a Samsung and you have an iPhone. But don't worry, you can use my phone today. It's Thursday, your easiest day of the week, right?" "Well, yeah, I guess that'll do," she said reluctantly. We exchanged numbers, and she looked like she was about to cry. "Maybe on Sunday we can go somewhere, spend some time alone, and talk," she suggested. I muttered something incomprehensible, shrugged, and left. I went to a local cafe for breakfast and then headed to the Apple store. I left Heidi's still functioning iPhone along with the new one with a technician for the data transfer. Outside, I sat on a bench, enjoying the sunlight and thinking about Maria. An hour later, the technician waved me back into the store. The transfer was complete. I signed Heidi up for a new plan, paying for a year in advance. Next, I went to a different bank than the one I usually used and opened a new checking account. Afterward, I headed to FCO's HR department to change the beneficiary on my insurance policy from Heidi to Maria. I also updated my direct deposit account to the new one. The last stop of the day was a visit to Albert. When I entered his secretary Marjorie's office, she looked surprised. "Merle, Albert wasn't expecting you today," she said, clearly caught off guard. "I was running errands, stopped by HR, and thought I'd drop in to see him for a minute." "Why? Is something going on?" "No, nothing's going on. You just surprised me," she said, flustered. "Albert said you were taking a month off. You don't usually use all your vacation time. Let me check if he's free." She pressed a button on the phone. "Albert, Merle White wants to see you." "Let him in," Albert replied. When I entered Albert's office, he stood up and shook my hand. "Merle, come in. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? Sprite?" "I'm fine," I said, sitting down as he closed the door. "How can I help you?" Albert asked. "When we talked on the phone Tuesday morning, I felt like you knew something but weren't telling me. What's going on? Is there something I should know?" Albert hesitated, then sighed. Nothing's going on, Albert. Speak now," I said firmly. "Okay," he said, exhaling heavily. "Gemma was going to leave, and the council didn't want that to happen. She wanted your job, and the council decided to promote you and give her your position." "Okay," I said, processing his words. "Breathe, Albert. Slow down and start over." He repeated everything, this time more slowly. The gist was clear. My vacation had come at just the right time. The name on my office door had already been changed, but a new position for me hadn't been created yet. "If you don't find me a job, I'll retire, sell some of my shares, and go live on an island." "How many shares do I have?" "I'm not sure." "Albert, you're a math genius. You know how many shares everyone bought and their options, right? 250,000 shares. That wasn't so hard, was it? What's the price today?" $21.56 at the opening. "How much are they worth?" "About $383 million. Looks like I won't be living on the street, huh? Can I sell some now? I need to buy a new vehicle. How about 10,000 shares?" I'll buy them from you out of my reserve account and write you a check today. That would be great. Now tell me about Heidi. Your tone gave you away when you mentioned her on the phone. Albert sat motionless in his chair, staring at the floor. Albert, tell me about her. I know more than you think. She works at the Rebel Strip Club and in the executive suite. I'm the last person in town to find out, aren't I? Does Greta know you go there to watch strip teases? Let's forget I said anything. Can I have the check now? Marjorie, come here, Albert called. She entered, and after Albert explained what we were doing, she completed the paperwork and wrote me a check for $1,215,000 from the safe. I got up and started to leave. Do what you can about the job, but don't stress. Oh, and let's keep this conversation a secret. Heidi doesn't know I know, and I haven't talked to her yet. Of course, Merle. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. As I touched the doorknob, I turned back. Albert, is she really that good? The word to describe her performances is, wow. As I said goodbye to Marjorie, I began to think. Marjorie, you seemed nervous when I came in. Have you talked to Heidi? Merle, why would you, think that I, did that? Thank you. You just answered my question. Tell Heidi I said hi. Maria and I spent the rest of the day cloning Heidi's old phone to the new one. Maria copied all the data from the SIM card to the cloud, ensuring everything Heidi sent or received via SMS would appear on both phones. When she finished, I kissed her and went home for dinner. My wife was cooking, so I washed my hands and joined her for a nice meal, our last one together. While clearing the table, she asked about her phone. I took it out of my jacket pocket and handed it to her. As I rinsed the plates, I asked, Heidi, why didn't we have children? We both got tested, didn't we? She wasn't there. I glanced down the hallway and saw the bedroom door closed. I lay down on the couch with her old phone and started reading the text messages. Ones from Meredith, Spencer, Devin, and even the mayor. They all stung my pride, but there was no point in crying. When the bedroom door opened, I covered the phone and sat up. She stopped, shocked to see me awake. She had changed into a dress and was holding her purse and car keys. Where are you going? It's late. I always go dancing on Thursdays. Don't you think you should spend some time with your husband? Remember me, Merle? Honey, Meredith is waiting for me. I can't let her down. Really? But you can let your husband down. Whatever. Where's my phone? Merle, watch your language. She pulled my phone out of her purse and handed it to me. I snatched it from her roughly and turned away. When I didn't hear her leave, I turned back and barked. What the hell are you waiting for? Christmas? Don't let poor Meredith down. Go. She ran out the door and drove off. I woke up late Friday morning, and Heidi wasn't in bed. Her side was untouched, so she probably hadn't come home. After breakfast, I drove to my new bank and deposited the check from the sale of shares. They should have consulted Albert before issuing me a cashier's check to buy the Suburban. I picked up Maria, and we went to get my new used car. We drove back to her house, where I parked the Suburban and trailer behind the barn. After that, we went inside and ended up in bed. By 6 o'clock, we kissed, and I went home. Tomorrow is moving day. I cooked dinner alone and went to bed. Almost asleep, Heidi called. Merle, Meredith, and I are in Charlotte. Debbie Messer's husband was hit by a drunk driver today, and we're here to support her. I probably won't be back until Sunday morning. Is that okay? I muttered something incomprehensible, but she didn't seem to notice and hung up. I don't know any Debbie Messer, and honestly, I don't care. Now fully awake, I got dressed and started erasing my presents from the house. I packed all my clothes, leaving the suits on hangers. I boxed up 12 pairs of shoes and boots, as well as my toiletries. There was nothing else to take from the master bedroom or bathroom. I carried everything to the garage. I parked the trailer where there was plenty of space. It hadn't been used in a long time. Stepping into the kitchen, I pulled out a manila folder from my grandmother's recipe files and began searching through every folder, book, and drawer. I left everything open, with papers scattered on the floor. I wanted her to understand. Things had changed, and they had changed for the worse. I placed the manila folder in my briefcase, took out a yellow legal pad, and wrote 2 notes along with a short letter. Note 1. I'm leaving you money in the safe. You earned it through hard work, and I don't want to leave you without funds. That fool you made a cuckold of. I took your gold coin and left you the diamonds. I like the coin. I do not like you. P.S. Check the top drawer. You're a liar. How many of our 16 years of marriage have you cheated on me? How many times have I come second? If I wasn't enough for you, why didn't you talk to me? Letter. If I weren't married to you, I might have enjoyed watching you and Meredith. But now, the thought just makes me sick. When you receive the divorce papers, discuss them with a lawyer, not with the person bailing you out. Sign them and send them back. At least now I understand why you never got pregnant. You couldn't ruin that perfect body of yours with a screaming baby just to make your idiot husband happy. I'm only 36. Maybe I'll find a woman with moral principles who will love me and want children. 16 years, gone forever. I'll never get them back. Pretend I'm dead. Sincerely, the fool who said yes to you. I placed 1 note in the safe, another in her jewelry box, and the letter in her drawer. Then, I wandered around the house, looking for anything else I might need. Afterwards, I undressed and went to bed. My phone rang in the middle of the night, and I reached down to find it on the floor. Hello. Hey, honey, are you just waking up? It was Maria. Aha. Why are you calling so early? Is it early? It's already 10:30. Where's your wife? I was worried you two had a fight and she hurt you. Oh, she and Meredith made up some story about their friend's husband dying, blah, blah, blah. Let me get dressed and come pick up the Suburban and trailer. I've got news for you. Bye. Love you, my Maria. By 12:30, we arrived back at my house in the Suburban. We loaded all of my clothes into the back seat and cargo area, piling my suits on top. Maria asked me about other things I might want to take: photos, memorabilia, Christmas decorations, family Bible, birth certificates, property documents, and tax returns. Tax returns. You're a genius. We went to my office where I pulled out the small metal box where I kept all our tax returns, or so I thought. What else? She asked. Your laptop. Oh, and check the attic. Let me grab it, she offered. She lowered the attic ladder, flashlight in hand, and climbed up while I went back to my closet to search through boxes. Holy saints, how could I forget about this? I muttered as I opened a box. It contained mementos from my late mother and grandmother. Another held my grandmother's silver cutlery and tea set. A third box contained 4 silver cups from my great-grandmother and a soft case with 8 more that likely belonged to my great-great-grandmother. Maria was still in the attic, so I loaded the silverware and a box of personal items into the trailer and locked it. When I returned, she was just folding the ladder back up. Wait until you see what I found, I said as I kissed her. Why is it taking so long? I asked, seeing her holding the laptop. Sorry, she said, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. I wanted to make sure I could bypass any passwords. She saw the mess in my office and shook her head. Hey, I don't have to clean it up, I teased. Kissed her again, and she smiled. You'll keep kissing me when I'm pregnant, right? Certainly, but that's enough talk. Let's go practice. We got into the car and drove off. As we left, I noticed a police car approaching down the street. I parked, jumped out, and waved them down. They stopped, and the passenger window rolled down. Good afternoon, officers. The driver, a blonde sergeant, looked at me. Her partner, a large man, observed quietly. I'm breaking up with my wife, and I made a mess getting my things. She won't be back until tomorrow morning, but I know she'll react badly. Probably call the police. It just dawned on me that I should warn you to save everyone's time. The man pulled out a PDA and asked for my driver's license. I handed it over and he scanned it. The sergeant glanced at the laptop in Maria's hands. Her eyes widened, her mouth forming a sympathetic expression. Oh God, I'm the only person in town who didn't know, I said, tears welling up in my eyes. I felt worthless. Mr. White, we're sorry, the sergeant said. We can't file a formal report, but we'll notify our shift supervisor. It's okay, I replied. Thank you, officers. You're doing the right thing. We watched the police car drive away, and then Maria and I got back into the Suburban. I shifted gears and headed toward my new home. We didn't talk much on the road. Maria just held my right hand in hers. When we arrived at her lot, I asked, "Is there a place for me to stay?" "Of course, honey," she said, pointing. "That barn right in front of us. You can park inside. We can put a mattress in the back of the Suburban and hook up a garden hose for the shower." "Stop. I'm ticklish. Please stop." Maria laughed as I tickled her under her arms. "If I sleep there, then so will you," I teased, stopping the tickling. She kissed me and replied, "I'd sleep with you even in a stinking trash can." She kissed me again. We carried my clothes into her room and left the boxes on the floor in the dining room. As I brought in the last box, Maria's mother came downstairs. Her eyes were sparkling with anger, and she waved her arms as she spoke rapidly in Vietnamese. I didn't understand until Maria translated. She's saying to take everything out of the boxes and put them on the table. I complied, opening the box containing the silverware and carefully placing all 4 sets on the dining table. Her mother fell silent as she walked slowly around the table, lightly touching the silver with small, reverent steps. Maria and I stood silently, watching her. After a couple of minutes, her mother spoke again and waved her arms emphatically. She says, "Go clean your room. Put that box in my office and get the other 2 boxes out of the house." Maria translated. I carried the empty boxes out to the trash. When I returned to Maria's room, I saw she had hung all my clothes in the closet and was putting my folded clothes neatly into the dresser drawers. "Go help Mom," she said, waving me off. "We need to go shopping for you. You have no style, no chic. Mom says to put away the boxes, and I say your clothes suck," she teased with a grin. After being kicked out of the room, I went to check on her mother. She was sitting at the dining table, examining the cutlery with a jeweler's loupe. When she saw me watching, she beckoned me over. "Come here," she sighed in English. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Drawing on my rusty French lessons from school," I replied. "From my mother's great-great-grandmother." Maria called for me again. "Merle, I need you." I hesitated, but her mother waved me off. Maria stood by the door, hands on her hips. "We need to go shopping. Your underwear and socks are terrible. Most of your casual clothes are wearable, and your suits are well-tailored, but you still need new clothes." "Fine, let's do it your way," I replied with a sigh. 3 hours later, I had new boxer briefs, t-shirts, socks, 6 pairs of casual pants, and several shirts. When we got back, I carried everything into Maria's room, but she shooed me away. As I wandered back toward the dining room, I heard a sudden scream and recognized the word, silver. I rushed over, only to find all the silver still on the dining table. We had to eat at the kitchen table that evening. Maria served me a delicious dish of chicken, vegetables, and rice. She and her mother spoke in loud voices and rapid Vietnamese, their tone growing increasingly heated. I couldn't understand a word. After finishing my second helping, I put the dishes in the dishwasher and went into Maria's office to connect the laptop. It booted up quickly and didn't require a password. Curious, I browsed the directory and found numerous video files, all sorted by date. I created folders and began sorting the files: no intimate, intimate with unknown, intimate with famous, and night with Spencer. I didn't watch the videos in full, just 30 seconds or less to determine where they belonged. After another half hour of sorting, Maria's mother called out, "Let's go." I walked into the living room, where she sat on a chair, motioning for me to sit on the sofa. Maria joined us, sitting beside me. Maria's mother spoke first, her words slow and deliberate. Maria reacted angrily, and the two of them began arguing loudly. I couldn't take it anymore and jumped to my feet, shouting, "Stop!" Maria's mother's eyes filled with tears, and Maria started crying as well. "Maria," as briefly as possible, "what's going on?" I asked, handing her a handkerchief. "It's about the silver," Maria said, choking back tears. "Please translate for me," I said, turning to her mother. Then, I gently wiped her tears with the handkerchief, kissed her forehead, and took both her hands in mine. "Mom," I said softly, "I won't allow a mother and daughter to speak to each other in such angry tones. I may be an outsider, but I understand family traditions. In your culture, a bride's dowry is important. But I haven't asked for permission to marry your daughter, and I haven't asked her to marry me yet. I'm still married, though I plan to see a lawyer tomorrow. Please accept my family silver as a gift for allowing me to stay here. When the time comes to pay a dowry, I promise you will have everything I have now, and everything I will ever have." Mom motioned for me to sit in her chair. She looked at Maria, said a few words, and then turned to me. Her speech was short and direct. When she finished, she kissed me on the forehead and both cheeks, then smiled, lightly tugging at my ears. She nodded toward Maria, who was still sobbing. Maria stood up and we hugged tightly. "Mom says she accepts your gift, but there will be no dowry. You will marry me and give her many grandchildren," Maria said with a smile. "She also says they'll probably have your big ears. It's time to sleep," she added. I walked quickly toward the stairs, ready for rest. The next morning, Maria woke me with a kiss. "I'm going to work. I'll be home around 6. Don't worry while I'm gone," she said, heading downstairs. After getting up and making myself presentable, Maria's mom made me breakfast: Vietnamese scrambled eggs. Once I finished eating, I called the law firm that had worked with my father and 3 other generations of the White family. After being put on hold for a few minutes, my father's last lawyer, Lee Greenfield, answered the phone. "M. White, how are you feeling, son?" "Okay. Well, maybe not so good," I admitted. "Merle, call me Lee, son. Now, what's the problem?" I condensed my sad story, 16 years of marriage, into 10 minutes. "I'm in court this afternoon and all day tomorrow. We can meet at my office in Charlotte at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Would that suit you? Can I bring moral support with me?" I asked. "Everyone's welcome," Lee replied. "I'll transfer you to my assistant, Tyler, who will tell you what to bring." One moment. About 10 seconds later, Tyler answered, and we discussed what documents and materials I needed to bring. After I hung up, I noticed several missed calls, text messages, and voicemails. I had forgotten to turn the ringer back on. Looking through the missed calls, I saw many from Heidi, a couple from Spencer, and a few from Meredith and Greg. Checking the texts, I saw Heidi's messages ranged from angry and threatening to crying and pleading. Spencer had sent only one message, threatening. Meredith's messages were begging me to talk to Heidi. The voicemails mirrored the texts, except for one from Albert, who asked about the hornet's nest I had stirred up. I returned to sorting through the video files. Most didn't contain anything intimate, but around 1 p.m., Mom interrupted me for lunch. Following her into the kitchen, I ate a delicious fish sandwich. Between bites, I asked her in my rusty French why the silver meant so much to her. In broken French, she told me about an NVA officer who had killed both sets of her grandparents because they had refused to give up the silver. Moved, I hugged her and asked, "May I hug you again?" She laughed. "Sure, but I'd prefer if you came to my bedroom and put me to bed," she joked. Returning to my laptop, I was startled to see someone I recognized in one of the videos. Greg. I created a new folder with his name and moved the video file there. Shortly after, another familiar face appeared. Arch Hero, Gemma's assistant, who had replaced me at FCO. While he was single and couldn't be accused of cheating, I realized I could get him fired. Continuing my search, I found a file dated 3 days before the Arch Hero video. It showed my replacement, Gemma, in bed with Heidi. This didn't surprise me. She might now join Arch Hero in being unemployed. But then Albert appeared in one of the videos. I worked until Maria pulled me out of the office for dinner. Over our meal, she told me she had spoken to her boss and asked them to find her a replacement because she wanted to try new challenges, like diapers and breastfeeding, she said, slapping the back of my head in the Gibbs style from Insius. The next morning, Maria woke me with another kiss as she got ready for work. I went downstairs to find that Mom had prepared well-cooked eggs and meat pies with soy sauce. I asked her how foods like eggs and bread were translated into Vietnamese. I may never speak the language fluently, but maybe I can understand it better, I said with a smile. I returned to my laptop and resumed sorting files. I had reviewed 750 so far, leaving 738 more to go before I could begin taking my revenge. I gathered everything Tyler had asked for and placed a new checkbook on top. When Maria returned home, I asked if her mother would accompany me to the lawyer's office. Maria asked her, and her mother replied in Vietnamese. "She wants to know why," Maria explained. "Tell her it's not about what she hears, but what her eyes see." "I trust her judgment," I replied. Maria translated, and her mom nodded in agreement. We left at 6 a.m. the next day, stopping in Gastonia for breakfast at a Vietnamese restaurant. We arrived at the law firm 10 minutes early, and I spent most of that time finding the perfect parking spot. At 9:02, we greeted Lee's secretary and were immediately shown into his office. "Merle, long time no see. How are you, boy?" Lee greeted me with a big grin, shaking my hand. "And who is this beautiful lady?" he asked, nodding toward Maria's mom. "Mother-in-law," I corrected, smiling at Lee. "She doesn't understand English, but she's very wise. I look up to her as the mother I never had. I call her Mom." Lee surprised me by greeting my mother-in-law in Vietnamese. They chatted for a few minutes, and I saw a smile light up her face. As we sat down, Lee explained, "I was stationed in Da Nang as an interpreter. After my service, I stayed with her family for over 40 years. The confusion on my face must have been obvious because Lee turned a photo on his desk toward me. It was his wedding photo with a beautiful Vietnamese woman by his side. "We're still married," he said with a proud smile. "What about you, Merle?" "There isn't even paper, let alone ink on it," I replied dryly. "You move fast, boy," Lee teased. "The ink on your divorce hasn't even dried, and you already have a replacement." "I've known Maria for 8 years, I said defensively. "Back then, everything seemed fine at home, or so I thought." "I see," Lee said thoughtfully. He pressed a button on his phone. Let me call my assistant, and we'll get started. Tyler, can you come in here? You call everyone's son Lee, I joked. He grinned. He is my son. I've got 2 sons and a daughter, and I'm still working at 69 because of my daughter's wedding, he added with a chuckle. Oh, I said, feeling momentarily embarrassed but quickly understanding his humor. Tyler walked in, sporting the same big smile and round face as Lee. We spent over an hour going through the documents I had brought, discussing the terms I wanted and answering his questions. Just before we left, I had an aha moment. Lee, I just remembered, Rabal's manager registered it as an LLC. Customer Prerequisites LLC, I said. Lee made a note. Okay. It may not matter, but it's good to know. As we headed home, I felt good about the new path I had embarked on. Over the next 2 days, I focused on reviewing and sorting MP4 files. By Friday evening, I had only 1 more day to go before I could start the second stage. Revenge on my enemies. When Maria returned that evening, I knew she had good news. Guess what? She said, grinning. You're pregnant, I asked playfully. Not yet, silly, she laughed. They've almost hired my replacement. He just needs to give notice, and I'll spend a week training him. Hooray! I exclaimed. Maria grabbed me and we started dancing, no music, just love. I want to go out to dinner and dance tonight, she said. There's a restaurant and dance club on the outskirts of town I've never been to. Let's go. We dressed up, went out, and had a wonderful date. I woke up early Saturday morning, eager to finish sorting through the remaining files. Maria wanted to help, so I copied Spencer's video onto a flash drive for her. If you have a program that can convert speech to text, that would help a lot, I told her. While she worked on her desktop computer, I continued on my laptop. After lunch, we kept working, and by 4:15 I had finished. Merle, Maria called out. I've transcribed and printed 6 of the 20 videos. You don't need to see more to understand. This man is beneath contempt. On Monday, you'll begin your revenge, starting with him. I took the pages she handed me and read them. Once I was done, I shredded all the documents. You don't need to transcribe any more scenes, I told her. Spencer must disappear forever. That night, we ate dinner Maria had cooked, since Mom was out dining with her friend Duan. The next morning, Maria prepared breakfast while I read the Sunday paper. We spent the rest of the day lying in the sun, brainstorming baby names and planning our wedding. I slept in until 8 a.m., and Maria had already left for work. Wandering around the house, I heard the phone ring. It was Lee. Hey, Merle, he began. We've prepared everything just the way you wanted. Based on what you told me about the divorce and the videos you have, you can use that if she refuses to sign. I can't handle that part for you, though. It might look like coercion. I also found out that for the last 6 years, your tax returns were filed as married but filing separately. Did you know about this? No, but nothing surprises me anymore, I said bitterly. She handled our taxes for the last 6 years, saying it was her way of contributing around the house. Even the IRS knew her secret before I did. I have a few questions, I added. When should I file, and when do you want her served? Serve her as soon as possible. Can you get it to her today? Certainly can, Lee replied. I'll call you back. Grabbing my car keys, I told Mom I was heading out and would be back soon. I drove to my old house, entering the street from the opposite side. Her car was parked in the garage next to Meredith's. I quickly left and returned to Maria's house, my house. It felt strange to think of it that way, but Maria's house was now my home. At 2:21 p.m., Tyler called me. Hey, Merle, he said. Heidi was served the papers at 2:05 p.m. today. On Tuesday, I began planning my revenge carefully, without writing anything down. If my mind couldn't testify against me, then no one could. Burns was the first on my list. I had several videos that could be sent to the newspapers to ruin his career. Next was Devin Durant, the owner of the Rabal strip club. I planned to burn it down. I just needed to find someone to help me. The police chief, who had covered up countless complaints about the club disrupting public order, would go down with the mayor. And then there was Spencer McCoy, my old friend. Spencer had made Heidi who she is now, and I planned to deal with him personally. Out of the 34 men in the videos, she had only slept with him once, but my gut told me to start with him. I knew 2 of the other men in the videos and decided to confront them first. The first was Bradley Smith, the high school principal. His first year as principal had been my senior year. I drove to the school and waited for him to finish a meeting. When he came out, he recognized me and invited me into his office. "Hey Merle, I haven't seen you since your 15th birthday party 3 years ago. What brings you here? I want to talk to you about Heidi." "About, I think I know what." "Yes, about what? Where, and how did this happen?" Bradley sighed deeply. "Spencer McCoy came to me about a year ago, asking for advice on some personal issues. We got into his car, and he drove me to Rabal. I'd never been there before, so I didn't think much of it. But then I saw her on stage. Fiery red hair. My wife. Spencer paid for a private dance in the back room. I finished my drink and followed her in. Immediately after I sat down, I blacked out. When I woke up, I was back at school, and Spencer was holding an ammonia capsule under my nose. He showed me a photo. It was a very candid shot of her with me. He didn't wait for my response. He just said, "I want $1,500 a month, cash only, sent to my house on the 1st of every month." I've been crying ever since. "What about my house?" I asked. Strangely, Heidi, or the fiery redhead as she called herself, called me one morning and invited me over. I knocked, and she pulled me inside. We had a night together. Then she told me to get dressed and leave. I haven't seen her since. Maybe she thought I didn't pay enough at Rabal. I told him to stay alert and hold tight. The second person I needed to talk to was David Van Ark, an accomplished artist and neighbor who lived 3 houses away with his wife, Patina. Driving my Suburban, I parked in front of their house and walked up to the porch. As I rang the doorbell, I admired the flowers Patina had planted. "Hey Merle, please come in," David greeted warmly. "David, Merle is here," Patina called out, smiling. I walked in and looked at Patina. Though they were both over 50, she was still stunningly beautiful. "Merle, long time no see. How are you?" "There have been better weeks," I replied. "I need to talk to you alone, David." "We can talk in my studio," he offered. Walking into the studio, I was overwhelmed by the vibrant colors and the scent of flowers from vases scattered throughout the room. Our conversation mirrored the one I'd had with Bradley, except David was also paying $1,500 a month. "That's why I paint so many pieces now," David admitted. "I need to replenish the money I took from our world travel fund, without Patina knowing." Before I could say more, Patina entered the studio and walked toward David. "Spencer was here 2 weeks ago, chatting about your misdeeds, and also about your visit to Merle," she said. "He thought I'd be so angry that I'd want revenge. He made a mistake. I tried to tell you, but I was afraid you'd hurt him and end up in jail." David began to cry, and Patina hugged him tightly. I assured them I would deal with Spencer and return their money. "Spencer will be the first to go down," I promised. The next morning, I prepared a package of evidence for Sarah, Spencer's wife. Driving past my old house, I saw Heidi's and Spencer's cars parked side by side in my driveway. This would make things easier. I took a couple of photos of the cars as further proof in case Sarah needed it. At Spencer's house, a for sale sign stood in the yard, and a Ford Taurus was parked in the driveway. I grabbed the bag from the back seat and walked to the front door, which was ajar. "Sarah, are you there?" I called out. I heard the click of heels on the wooden floor. Sarah turned the corner, her face lighting up with a big smile. "Merle, where have you been? It's been so long. How's Heidi?" "Wonderful," I replied flatly. "Why are you selling?" Spencer didn't mention moving. "He bought a new house in Thousand Oaks and paid cash," she said proudly. "He even put it in my name. All the bonuses he's received and some investments brought great returns." I sat her down. "I need to talk to you. Spencer is in big trouble." I briefly told her my story. When she mentioned Spencer's computer was still in the house, I asked to see it. Pulling up an MP4 file, I played a video showing Spencer and Heidi together in my bed. That night, Spencer and Heidi were saying nasty things about Sarah and me. I showed Sarah some photos of Spencer and Heidi together and explained his extortion schemes and the money he'd been collecting from other victims. Sarah looked sad but didn't cry. "I've long suspected he was cheating on me," she admitted. "Can I take the CD and photos for my lawyer?" "Yes, but wait a few months to file for divorce," I advised. "He's gotten involved with some really bad people, and I'm not sure he'll survive. Since he gave you a house, change the locks. If you need money, don't be afraid to ask. You and I are the real victims of this Greek tragedy." "I'm rich because of stocks I bought at work," Sarah said. "So if I help myself, I'll be hurting Spencer." "What about Heidi? Will you try to save the marriage?" "I may forgive her someday, but I'll never be able to love her again, unless there's some divine intervention," I replied. "I've reconnected with someone from my past, and I'm head over heels in love with her now." "Sarah," I continued, "can I take Spencer's safe and computer? His CDs and photographs are in the safe, along with other evidence." "Take them," she said. "I'll go home." I handed her 2 business cards, one for a locksmith and one for myself. "Call this guy. He's honest, reliable, and owes me. Say my name, and call me if you need anything." I kissed her forehead as she pulled out of the driveway. I dialed Maria's number. "Maria, you said your brother lives in the city. I need a little help moving a safe." "I'll call him and give him your number," she replied. While I waited, I looked through Heidi's old phone and reread her messages. The last one from Spencer said, "Baby, I'm coming, and we're going to spend all day and all night catching up." A few minutes later, my phone rang. "Hello. My sister said you need help," a man said. "I have a safe that needs to be loaded into my trailer." I told him, giving him the address and the dimensions of the safe. "Someone will be there in 45 minutes. "I'll be waiting," I said, and we disconnected. 35 minutes later, a van arrived. 2 men stepped out with a cart, loaded the safe onto my trailer, and told me to call when I needed help unloading it. I grabbed the computer unit and drove home in my Suburban. When I arrived, Maria's brother, Duong, was waiting for me at her barn. After we unloaded the safe and placed it inside, I covered it with a tarp. "Duong," I asked hypothetically, "do you know anyone who can make a body disappear? And where I could get a clean pistol with a silencer?" He paused, then said, "I'll get back to you with an answer." Returning to the barn, I examined the safe. People are so careless. Spencer had taped a scrap of paper with the combination to the back of the safe. I opened it to find additional photographs, CDs, personal papers, a will, and a stack of cash totaling $96,541. I left the cash, burned the photographs and CDs, and packed the personal papers to give to Sarah. My phone rang. It was Duong. "Can this happen tonight?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He gave me an address and instructed me to drive my own car, not the Suburban, and bring $120,000 in cash. I told Mom I was heading out, grabbed $122,000 of Spencer's money, and drove to the address, a shopping center parking lot. When I arrived, a van parked next to my passenger door. Duong got into my car, holding a packet. "This is what you asked for," he said, handing me the packet and a piece of paper. I handed him 2 stacks of $100 bills wrapped in newspaper. "Follow the instructions exactly," he said before getting out and driving off. I read the instructions and drove to Spencer's house. Nearing the house, I called Spencer, hoping to catch him off guard. "Spence, I'm at your house. There are 3 guys in your driveway with a truck. They're trying to load your safe onto it." "What? Stop them." "How?" "It's 3-1, I said. "Okay, I'll be there soon." I parked in his driveway and turned my car to face west, toward the road out of town. 15 minutes later, Spencer's car screeched around the corner and slid into the driveway. He got out, yelling, "Where are they?" "They just left," I shouted back. "Get in my car. I'll follow them." He believed me and got into my car. I drove quickly, taking the road out of town. As we sped along, Spencer complained, cursed, and grumbled about how unfair life was. When I stopped 100 feet from the dump, he finally fell silent. "That's the truck that took your safe," I said, pointing. "Drive through the gate," he shouted. I pulled in and followed the path marked with a sign. "Confession is good for the soul." I drove down the lane until I reached an opening with a crane overhead and parked. "Is this my safe?" I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and leaned out the open window, holding a .22 pistol equipped with a silencer. He didn't even notice the vinyl glove on my right hand. The shock on his face said everything. "Spencer, I ask questions and you answer. Cross me and you'll get hurt. Nod if you understand." His head jerked slightly, but when I moved my right hand, he nodded more vigorously. "Good. Now, did you install a laptop above my bedroom ceiling with a camera in the smoke detector?" Yes. "No excuses. Next question. Did you blackmail Heidi by threatening to expose her actions unless she slept with you? Yes or no?" He sighed and lowered his head. "Yes." "How many people are you blackmailing for intimate misdeeds you orchestrated?" "About 60. Does Sarah know?" "No. Please don't tell her." Last question. "Why do you hate me so much?" "She's too good for you, Merle. You don't appreciate her." I killed him. Later, I walked into the landfill's exit, where Dong picked me up and drove me home. He stayed for dinner, and we had a great time eating and talking. As he was leaving, he stopped and looked at the silverware. "Did you give all this to Mom?" I nodded. He smiled. That night, I confessed everything to Maria and begged for her forgiveness. "Merle, we Vietnamese think about killing differently than white Americans. If a person deserves to die, and they die, we don't care how it happened. Understand?" I had transcribed 6 conversations between Heidi and Spencer. He was an evil, disgusting man who deserved to die. The next morning, Lee called me. "Hey, buddy, good morning. Your wife will sign the papers today if you talk to her." "What does that mean?" "Signing means that after submitting the documents, you'll be free in 90 days. "What should I do?" "Tyler's on his way to pick you up. He'll take you to your old house to meet Heidi and her lawyer at 10. "Okay, I'll be ready." I called Maria. "Maria, is Manon listening?" "Yes." "Great news. I'm meeting Tyler, Heidi, and her lawyer at 10. She'll sign, and in 90 days, I'll be free." "Amazing. What does she want to talk about?" Talking only. No kissing. Yes, darling. Bye. Tyler picked me up, and I gave him directions to Heidi's house. When we arrived, her lawyer was already walking toward the front door. Heidi came out to greet us. Oh my God, Merle. Her picture doesn't do her justice. Come on, Tyler. Don't drool. We went inside, and I led Tyler to the dining room. Heidi avoided looking me in the eye. We signed and initialed documents until everything was finalized. Both lawyers left, and Heidi and I were alone. Strangers after 16 years of marriage. Did you want to talk? She stood up and started pacing. It all started 6 years ago when you were at a 2-day seminar in Atlanta. Spencer came to me, and I became the first victim of his extortion scheme. He gave me some drugs and stayed overnight. The next night, he gave me more and took me to a ball. I was in awe of how the girls controlled the men's wallets. When it was over, there were $1,500 on the stage. From that moment on, you became second to me. I won't tell you about all the men or women I've slept with. There were many. At first, I danced only on Fridays, then Wednesdays. That's when Meredith joined me. Saturdays were supposedly for charity, and Thursdays were my dance nights. I started treating you like a roommate. The men we were with were powerful, not just at the club but outside. Local politicians, businessmen, police officers, and victims of Spencer's blackmail paid for lap dances or hotel nights. That's why I was often late. So, you didn't see a future with us? No. The thrill of intimacy with others and the money was too much to resist. There's one man, 58, who is rich and wants me exclusively. Maybe I'll try with him. What about Spencer? He's bad news. Truly evil. He hurts me and calls you horrible names. I hate him. Take your money and diamonds and leave the city. Did you know he installed a camera in the smoke detector in our bedroom and a computer in the attic? A camera? Oh God, no. How long? 5 years. That's why he made me call the men he was setting up at the club. She broke down, tears and mascara streaming down her face. I felt no sympathy. Don't worry. I've taken care of everything. That's why you need to leave the city. I'll put the house up for sale. Go to your lawyer and sign a power of attorney. We stood silently for a moment. Hi. Can you take me to where I live now? Certainly. When we arrived at Maria's house, she asked, Have you found someone you can love? Yes, I replied as I stepped out. Maria came home at 4 and said, They fired him. Who fired who? I asked. My replacement. His job fired him. So, I have 1 week left. The day after tomorrow, is everything signed? Yes, 90 days. We should get married at court or with the magistrate, I joked. Maria shook her head, laughing. I told my mom, and she slapped me because she still isn't used to my humor. The next day, I went to FCO to meet Albert. After I explained what was on the CD and what happened in the 2 scenes, he put his head in his hands. That explains some of the things I've heard about Jim. Can you go back to your old job? I laughed. No, I'm better off on my own now. As I left, Margar pretended to be talking on the phone. Once back in my SUV, I called Sarah and told her I needed to see her. Come over, she said. When I arrived at her apartment complex, I passed through security and drove up to her mansion, parking in the driveway. As she came out, she asked, Have you heard anything about Spencer? Only rumors. I heard he ran into those evil people I told you about, but I don't know where he is. I reached into my suitcase and handed her all the papers from his safe, along with $120,000. His will is in there too. She stared at the money, speechless. Later, I went to see Maria. We were planning a trip to visit relatives in Gastonia when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a policeman standing in the doorway. "How can I help you, officer?" I asked, inviting him inside and leading him to the living room. "I'm investigating the disappearance of Spencer McCoy. He disappeared yesterday, and we were told you know him and were seen at his house yesterday." I nodded. "I've known him for many years, though I haven't always treated him well. He's always balanced on the line between legal and illegal." I paused before continuing. "I did go to his house. The front door was open, so I called him and told him. He said he'd be there soon. 15 minutes later, he arrived, furious because his safe was missing. There was a piece of paper on the table by the door, and when he read it, his mood shifted from anger to fear. The officer listened intently as I went on. He asked me to give him a ride, and I agreed. I drove him west out of town and dropped him off at a bus stop. He said someone would pick him up and told me I had to leave quickly. He also said these were evil people I wouldn't want to meet, so I left." The officer looked at me carefully. "If I have more questions, can I come back?" "Of course, officer." As he left, Mom and Maria hugged me from both sides. We went to Gastonia, and I had a great time watching Maria fend off all the single women trying to get between us. Maria wasn't the only one to return home with a handprint on her cheek. On Sunday morning, as I got out of bed, I turned to Maria. "Can we go on a long vacation next week? I need some time, too much stress." "Oops," I muttered as Mom walked into the room without knocking. She quickly left, closing the door behind her and muttering something under her breath. Mom was unusually quiet on Monday morning. I taught her how to make French toast just the way I liked it. They turned out so delicious that she ate mine, and I had to make more for myself. As I picked up the newspaper, the front page caught my eye. There was an article about the mayor, a scandal, and his secret wife and children. I turned to Maria with a smile. "Yes, I'd really like to go on vacation right now." In the following days, the newspaper was rife with stories about the mayor's misdeeds. Corruption, a judge caught accepting bribes, and a police chief embroiled in scandal. On the last page, there was an article about my old friend Spencer, who had mysteriously disappeared. Bradley Smith called me, wanting to know if I had anything to do with the envelope of money he had received. I answered truthfully, "Bradley, I didn't deliver you an envelope of money." Dong later told me he had found someone who did. An hour later, David Van Ark called, saying he had received a surprise gift in the mail and asked if I would like a portrait of my wife at a discounted price. "Can I get back to you in 8 months?" I replied with a grin. The police raided Rabaul, and the bad publicity hit the business hard. Not long after, the place was set on fire. It was clear it was arson, and the fire inspector pinned the blame on Dion Durant, the owner, manager, and insurance holder. The insurance company refused to pay out, and Durant was arrested. Meanwhile, the mayor resigned and vanished. Speculation in the press suggested he knew too much to be allowed to live. Following a thorough investigation, the police chief and 2 other officers were charged with various crimes, while 9 other officers resigned in disgrace. I put my house on the market, and it sold for full price within a week. Heidi's lawyer took her half, and Maria and I packed our bags. We headed to the French Riviera, spending a week lounging on the beaches with famous people. By the time Maria was 20 weeks pregnant, we both felt her pregnancy had truly begun. After a doctor's visit, I sold more shares and whisked her away to Sandals, an adults-only resort. We stayed in a waterfront cottage for 28 days. On the 7th day of our trip, we returned from a clothing-optional canoe excursion to find someone lying face down on one of our sun loungers. In the near future, Maria and I got married when she was 8 months pregnant. David Van Ark painted a stunning portrait of her in bridal lingerie, her rounded belly prominently featured. What's your impression of this story? It seems to me that my husband went into the attic and looked through those compromising tapes for a reason.